It's amazing the amount of content that we have to deal with today. This just wasn't the same scale as it was, certainly years ago. And so I really get what our customers are going through because we have the same issues, and just keeping up with the demands for content and staying on top of all of these assets that you create can be really challenging.
Welcome, everybody, to the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker. Another great episode coming your way today. We've got a special guest with us who found out through another one of our guests about the podcast and reached out to me and wanted to join us. And after taking a look at the technology that she represents and the company that she works with, I thought they'd be a great group to have here on the podcast today. So I am joined by Amrita Gurney from Crowdriff, and I'm really excited to have you on, Amrita. How you doing?
I'm great, Adam. Really nice to be here and nice to join the stellar lineup of people that you've had on your podcast.
Well, yeah, we've been lucky at how many people have said yes, so that's really nice.
I think we all have good stories to tell, and the DMO space is rich with lots of creative people as well.
And now with you on today, it just gets that much more powerful. So thanks for joining us.
No pressure.
Yeah, this better be good. No, it will be. And I've looked enough at your product and technology to know that it will be a fun episode today. And, before we get too deep into who you are and what you do, we really like to ask a question at the beginning of every episode to kind of break the ice. What is your dream destination? If you go anywhere in the world, where would it be?
I would really love to go to Japan. It is a place that I've been wanting to go to for a while because it just seems like it's so different from where I live in North America. And there's an island in particular that I don't know the name of that apparently is all about art and is very remote. And I'm a big art lover, so I love the idea of going somewhere like that and just being immersed in great art.
Now, how do you find out about a small island off the coast of Japan that is focused on art? How do you find out about that?
That's a great question. I imagine I heard about it on social media, like I hear about a lot of things. So someone must have written something about it and posted it, and it showed up in my feed. And of course, it kind of came and went, so I'd have to go back and do some more research.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, actually, with the fact that you found it on social media. I feel like I have learned about more destinations over the last couple of years that I wasn't aware of through social media than I ever had in the past. And, there's a lot of amazing places in this world. And depending on what you're into, it's kind of fun to see, the different destinations that pop up and put things on your bucket list, I guess, that never had been there before.
Absolutely. I think it's a bit dangerous because there's so much out there that you are just, inspired to visit. But I'd say I'd had to start putting my bit more money into my travel budget over these last 3 years.
Yeah. Travel is one of the most expensive hobbies, isn't it?
It certainly is, indeed.
Well, that's great. We haven't gotten Japan yet as our answer on that question. So I appreciate you bringing some originality here. And
nice.
Japan seems like it would be an incredible place to visit. And I haven't heard of that island, but that's the great thing about it is there's something in almost every country in the world for every visitor and every traveler. So really cool. What about places you have been? Tell me your favorite place that you've actually visited.
Sure. So I've been lucky that my family exposed me to travel really young, and I have spent a lot of time in my career and just personal life traveling. And I completed a life goal just last month. I wanted to visit all 7 continents. And so my dream destination, not my dream destination, my favorite place that I just visited was the last continent that I reached, which was Morocco in Africa. And I visited the city of Marrakesh, which was incredible and way better than I expected. I was a little bit nervous. I was there by myself. And so I was a bit nervous, wondering what it will be like to be there as a solo woman traveler, but it was really incredible.
Wow. Okay. All 7 continents. You said you had to put a little bit more money into your travel budget. It sounds like there's been a lot of money of that travel budget already spent to get to 7 continents.
There has. You're right. My husband's probably wondering what money. We already put it all into our travel budget.
There's not many people that can say that, though. That's so great. So we didn't plan this portion of the episode, but after hearing that you visited all 7 continents, I've got to ask, I mean, tell me a little bit about some of the highlights.
For sure. I mean, I think going to Antarctica was definitely not something I had ever thought I would do, but I had an opportunity a long time ago, actually, to go with a family member who had a last minute opening on his trip and asked if I could come along. So I went down there, and I thought Antarctica was just a sheet of ice, but I was there during their summer, and it was really mountainous, like Switzerland. It had beautiful wildlife, and it was incredibly clean. So I was not expecting to enjoy Antarctica as much as I did. So that was definitely a highlight. And then I would say my other highlight.
Let me ask you another question. So, okay, summer in Antarctica, shorts, t-shirt, sunglasses. Right?
I'm Canadian, so summer in Antarctica is like a winter day in Canada. It was about, I think I'm trying to do the Celsius Fahrenheit conversion. It was probably about 40 degrees or like high 30s, 40 degrees. So parka weather.
That's warmer than I expected.
Yeah, I know. Parka weather. It was sunny. So sunglasses, parka, kind of like a good ski day.
Wow. Very cool. Okay. Sorry, I interrupted you.
No, I could, the entire podcast could be spent talking about travel. So I won't ramble on too much, but I think the thing that I've really noticed about traveling, which is so cliched, is that, on a one-to-one level, no matter where you go, there are incredible people that are doing really interesting things. And at the end of the day, love a lot of the same things that we do. And so for me, it's just been so great to see different ways of life and to not just appreciate what we have at home, but to learn from other cultures as well. Yeah,
that's something I've seen too. You know, my wife and I, a few years ago, we went to Fiji, and really, yes, the place is beautiful. The resort we stayed at was amazing, but I got to say the people were what made the difference for us. You know, they were so friendly and kind and fun. And anyway, I think you're absolutely right. That meeting the actual people and seeing the other cultures as you travel the world is pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I think relating back to DMOs, the thing that strikes me is that, you know, destination marketing tends to be focused on the things you can do, like go visit this landmark or go on this hike. And I think there's a real opportunity to really share the stories of the people of these destinations, which I think can be easy to overlook.
I think that's a great point. You know, we could have an entire episode on how to leverage the local culture and the stakeholders and the citizens within your destination to garner more interest. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that's probably pretty underutilized in the destination space.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for giving us that we usually don't spend that much time, but you've got a pretty big wealth of information about places you visited. I didn't want to pass that by. Let's talk about, though, a little bit about your professional background, how you got into tourism, and what eventually led you to Crowdriff.
Sure. So I have worked as a marketer my entire career, and I've been working in the tech space for the last 15 years and really didn't have a technical background. I've always loved marketing. I love telling stories. And certainly 15 years ago, marketing was different than what it is today. And so I worked at a number of different startups. I started my startup career in Boston, where I got my MBA, and I spent probably a good 10 years in Boston, just working for different companies there, traveled a bit around the world, and then ended up in Toronto. I moved here a few years ago and didn't plan to get into tourism, to be honest. I was really just interested in staying in the technology space, and then happened to get introduced to the founder of Crowdriff and learned about tourism because that was the focus of Crowdriff when I joined, and have since just really fallen in love with this sector, and especially with the people who work in tourism. I think they're some of the kindest, most fun and warm people I've ever worked with.
Yes. Yeah. The people of tourism really make the industry. So I think that's great. Tell me a little bit about, so you said that you've traveled to 7 continents. You didn't plan on getting into tourism. Were you already a traveler, or have you accomplished all of your travels since you started at Crowdriff?
I've definitely always been a traveler. I grew up in a family where my father traveled a lot. And so my memories of being a child sitting around the dinner table were his stories of his travels. And he's, I believe, been to every country in the world. So he was an extreme. He's really been everywhere. And he really really encouraged his kids to travel. He didn't make us scared. Like, he really wanted us to enjoy whatever we could in the world, and again, understand that there's different ways of living. So I've always been interested in travel, but it never occurred to me, for some reason, it never occurred to me to work in the travel industry. And I don't really know why, because there's so much opportunity here. And so I feel really grateful that sort of at this point in my career, I am doing work that I really love in an industry that I really believe in.
Yeah, we hear that a lot. The tourism industry kind of just draws you in if you're the right person to work in tourism. Sounds like that's what happened to you.
Absolutely. I know some of the other shows that you've done, it's been a similar thread that people didn't necessarily plan to get into tourism, but they've ended up here.
Yeah, including me. Yeah. Let's talk about Crowdriff. It sounds like it's a great technology. When you met the founder, it was pretty clear that you wanted to continue to work with him and her. Sorry, him. I actually didn't check that.
Yeah,
him.
so we have,
right. I thought you referred to him as him, but yes, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, we have two co-founders. They're both gentlemen who started Crowdriff, almost right out of university, which was a long time ago. And the company was really interesting because they were really talking about a trend which exists, whether or not Crowdriff exists. I think they are tapping into something that has changed in our world, which is that so much of our communication now happens through visuals. And you were talking about social media and how, you'll go online and you'll see images of things, whether it's fashion or restaurants or vacations. And so, they really believe that the world is moving to a much more visual communication style, and visuals are what people use to make decisions. And so they felt that if you are in the business of tourism, which is so visually oriented, that the visual content is actually the most important kind of content that can influence travelers. And so that's really what the company has been all about, is how do we help marketers work better with visual content, work smarter, save time, get better results. And that's really what Crowdriff is all about at a very high level.
So tell me how you do that then, because visual content, like you say, is so critical. I mean, nobody ever has enough photos or video assets to do the trick. So what do you guys do specifically to help people do better with their visual content?
Sure. So we're known for two things. I think the thing we're most known for is that we were the first platform to find all of the visuals that people are sharing on social media around your tourism brand, and then help you get rights to those visuals, and then use those visuals on your website or in your brochures or, in display screens at your visitor center. And we use, technology to, surface the visuals that are really good, so you don't have to look at the bathroom selfies and the inappropriate content that you would never use for your brand. So that's really, user-generated content, or UGC, is what we really became known for. And then over the last couple of years, we really have invested heavily in artificial intelligence, and we saw that a lot of our customers were not just wanting photos from social media. As you probably know well, as an agency, you're working with your customers and they're doing video shoots, they're commissioning photographers, they're licensing photography, and typically that lives on people's hard drives. And so when you need it, sometimes it can be a bit hard to find. And so we now are also the place where all of your visuals live. So if you are looking for, 10 photos of two people hiking, smiling on a sunny day last July, you could use Crowdriff and do a quick search and find those photos, versus having to browse through, hundreds of photos to do the same thing.
Great. And I can clearly see why that's going to be so critical for destinations, because instead of destinations having to hire a photography crew or hire a video crew to go out to the destination, in a lot of cases that content already exists. They just need approval from the creator to be able to use it. Tell me about that process of getting approval from the creator to use their content. User-generated content sounds great, but I know that in some cases it's difficult to get a hold of the person that took the photo, or anyway, I know you guys simplify that. Tell me a little about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So First of all, we definitely feel that there's a place for both kinds of content. We know that user-generated content is just one kind of content, and it is very authentic. That's why people love it so much, because it's really believable and generally unfiltered. But we know that sometimes there'll be a need for professional photography because you can control what's in your shot. And we really want to make sure that whatever the visual is, that marketers can get the right one that they need. But on the UGC side, really it comes down to getting rights. So without getting too technical, we know that when people join social media, if they have a public account, there are certain terms and conditions that they're agreeing to. And so Crowdriff follows the official developer guidelines for all of these social networks. So we can actually put beautiful image galleries on websites without you needing to go out and get rights to those photos, because we follow Instagram guidelines or Facebook or Twitter guidelines. But we also know that there are times where you might want to use the photo in print or, again, somewhere where you may not be following those guidelines. And so in that case, our product sends a message out to the person who has taken the photo, and we can have like full legal terms and conditions that the person can sign to agree to give rights to that content. And then we put all of those rights approved images in a very particular area of our product so that it's really easy to know that you've gotten rights to something and you know how you can use it. Great.
And I'll be honest, I didn't realize that you could just use Instagram and Facebook images without approval. And you don't have to tell me exactly why you guys are able to, but I do think that's valuable for every destination to know that you can use those photos without necessarily getting approval from the creator. Is there anything that destinations need to know with that? Is there anything they need to watch out for?
Yes, absolutely. I think rights are a very tricky area. And, I'm not a lawyer, so I want to make sure that these are sort of used as very general guidelines. But if you were to take, let's say you find a single photo on Instagram that you really like, there's, if you click on the little 3 dots on that photo, there's an option to embed the photo. So if you copy and paste that code from Instagram directly into your website, you are following the guidelines, and that is considered generally okay for use. There are some certain circumstances for which, again, I don't want to get too technical about it, but there are some circumstances where maybe there's something in the photo, like a piece of art, that you don't have the rights to. So there are certain guidelines like that, but we do encourage people to make sure that they know what the rules are in their jurisdiction, because that's the other consideration. Different states and different countries have different laws. So you want to make sure that you're aware of what's required in your area so that you are following the law and using good practices.
Well, and another reason to make sure that you consider using someone that's already been through that and figured out what to and what not to do. So Crowdriff can help you skip a couple of those hard learning steps, right? To make sure that you're using the content correctly and that you're compliant, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we know that a lot of people are just sharing this photography or videography just out of goodwill. They love your destination. And so this is a nice way to amplify what they're doing and to show them some goodwill. But for sure, you don't want to ask for forgiveness. We believe you should be asking for permission.
Perfect. Okay, let's talk about the storage side, because I thought that was really interesting. It is difficult for a lot of destinations to have all of their visual assets in one place. And the fact that you guys are able to help destinations pull that all together is great. Tell me a little bit about how that works. How do they access it when they need it? Is it, tell me the details of that.
Sure. So the first thing that we typically do when we start working with someone is we will take all of their current images and we will put them into our system. So we've had customers with a terabyte of data or 500 gigs of data, thousands or even more photos. And then what we do is we use artificial intelligence and machine learning to actually see what's in the photo and automatically tag it. And that's probably the biggest time-consuming step for a lot of people when it comes to their visuals. You probably have done this, right? Naming your file, kayak photo shoot from, Boulder or whatever that is. And so I don't know if you can kayak in Boulder. I assume you can. So I think a lot of times people are,
I'm sure there's somewhere.
Probably, hopefully. So people spend a lot of time either writing those things down and putting them into folders, or more often than not, I know I do this, I don't name my files. And so, you might have 5,000 files on your laptop that are called image 523. And so good luck finding the photo that you need when you need it. So really a big thing that we do is we auto tag everything. So if there was an image that had a couple and they're mountain biking and there's, some sheep in the countryside, or there's like foxes in the woods, like we can pick up a lot of the stuff that's in the image. And so this way, when you're searching for it, you would just do a search like you would do in Google, and it would find those photos for you.
Wow. Also pretty incredible for a destination. I mean, like you said, some of them have just thousands and thousands of photo assets or video assets, and to be able to catalog those without taking the time, it's kind of funny. We as an agency we've had to catalog a lot of that stuff over the years, and it's funny because I don't know if everybody knows just how long that actually takes. So I'm kind of salivating at the idea of having it done through AI.
I think that, I'm a marketer myself like you are, and I think it's amazing the amount of content that we have to deal with today. This just wasn't the same scale as it was, certainly years ago. And so I really feel the pain because we have a marketing team here at Crowdriff and we have visuals. And so I really get what our customers are going through because we have the same issues, and just keeping up with the demands for content and staying on top of all of these assets that you create can be really challenging.
Totally. I think that's a great point. Let's talk a little bit because, it's great to hear about your platform, right? And what it does. I think the next question for a lot of our listeners will be, okay, where can I go to see someone that's using it well that may not necessarily be Crowdriff? And I'm not trying to create a situation where you've got dozens of destinations calling one destination and asking them for the case study. It's more like, can they go look at what they're doing on their website and kind of see this in action? Is there anybody that's doing that really well?
Sure. So I can't believe it, but we're now working with about 700 brands. So it's pretty incredible to see what people are doing out there. And I would say like many of the destinations that you're familiar with are using Crowdriff. So New Orleans, or Visit Indy, Visit St. Paul, Visit Franklin. I know, again, Josh, he was actually our very first customer, believe it or not.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
Yeah, our very first customer. So they're using it. Visit the Palm Beaches, and then many states are using it too. So we work with many of the people that are probably listening to this podcast. And so if there's a particular kind of destination, if you're a smaller destination, there's some smaller ones that we can point you to, because not every DMO is going to have the budget of Visit Colorado, for example. So we do work with destinations of all sizes. We've got Block Island, Rhode Island, who is not just a small destination. It's a one-woman DMO team. So she's the marketing department, she's the sales team, she's everything on that one island. So it's been really cool to see how much people can accomplish regardless of how big their team is.
So how does your product scale up and down depending on budget? If I've got a destination, say, I don't know, somewhere in Michigan that's really small, how will they be limited, I guess, if they're on a smaller budget compared to, New Orleans or some of the bigger destinations that you talked about?
Yeah, so we built our product to really scale more based on the functionality you use, so that you're not limited by like how many hashtags or how many things you can track, because we don't want people to use our product and not have a good experience or not feel like they can really, use it to accomplish their goals. So I would say at a base level, you can find the visuals from social media and you can embed them into your website. That tends to be sort of a minimum that people like to do. And then as you want more advanced functionality, like getting rights or using certain smart functionality, or, working with an agency like yourself, a lot of agencies like to use our API to create custom experiences. So those are things that tend to be more appropriate for larger teams. So in that way, you can add on additional functionality like that if you have the ability to really take advantage of it.
Great. And is the storage and AI component, is that more of a large destination resource, or is that also scalable for smaller destinations?
Yeah, we have small destinations using it for sure. So that is something, again, we didn't want people to be limited by how much they could store if they were a small destination. And so we really have tried to put our packages together so that different destinations can use it in different ways. And you can certainly buy just the storage component if that's really what you're interested in, or you can buy a more full suite of products.
So you've talked a little bit about what Crowdriff can do. You've talked about the different components to your product. Where are you guys headed? What's the plan for Crowdriff?
That is the $1 million question. So I think one thing that we've been talking about a lot is, where is tourism heading? And I think there's 2 or 3 themes that are coming up that are challenges that we know people face. One is just, continuing to be able to get smarter about the way they work. So we know that DMOs are struggling to keep up with all of the content and the channels and budgets. There's a lot of constraints that they're working with. And so helping people kind of connect what they do more with insights that they can use to choose the better visuals for their Facebook ads or choose the visuals that are going to get more engagement on their website. And then I think more broadly, longer term, we realize that sustainability, over-tourism, perception management, working with natural or man-made disasters. These are all kind of issues that are coming up for DMOs. And so we want to really make sure that our product can support the marketing team's needs around that. So that's really where I see there being great opportunities to develop more.
Great. Well, sounds like you guys have got some great things on the roadmap. That's really good stuff.
Yeah, we're excited. I think our customers are, again, always coming up with new use cases, and they give us a ton of feedback. And so that's also been something really fun to do, is to really keep our ears out to what's happening in the DMO space. I think that's why podcasts like yours are super useful, because we get to hear directly from people who are in the industry and hear what's on their mind.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The reason we started this thing was I feel like there's a lot of inspirational stuff out there where, you'll have a big speaker come into a conference and say, here's some amazing marketing concepts. And everybody walks away and say, that sounds awesome. How do you do it?
Right.
And we really wanted to get a little bit more tactical. I went to a conference, and I won't say what conference it was, but I actually listened to a guy speak, and he talked about how you were going to be able to advertise on, I think it was Apple Watches,
right,
that he was talking about. He said, you're going to be able to advertise on Apple Watches. And everybody's so excited. This is so cool. And a couple of years later, everybody's still trying to figure out when that's going to come out, And so we want technologies that are ready now. We want technologies that are going to benefit our listeners now. And I think Crowdriff, especially after chatting with you today, it's pretty clear that you are. I want to invite you to do something. I haven't done this on the podcast before yet, but I want to invite you to go to our Destination Marketers LinkedIn group. And I want you to just post a quick summary of what you do with a link to where our listeners can find more information about you. Whenever we have people rattle off a URL on the podcast, I don't think there's a ton of people that are just ready to get a pen out and write it down, So I kind of want to use that LinkedIn group as a little bit more of a resource. Would you be willing to do that for our listeners?
Absolutely. I'd love to. I'd love to not just share about Crowdriff, but I really want to learn myself. And I think you've had some great people already, and you're building a nice community. And so I'm super excited to join.
Awesome. Well, we're excited to have you. It's been great to talk to you today, Amrita, and I'm personally looking forward to working more with you, even as we represent our clients, because I think you've got a product that is implement ready, if that makes sense. I think it's something that every destination could absolutely benefit from. So I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today.
Yeah, no, thank you. Like I said, I've been a new fan because I recently heard about your show, and there isn't really anything else like it. So it's really great for me to have the opportunity as well. And I appreciate what you're saying, because as a marketer myself, I have bought tools that I've paid good money for and then I don't use, and you never want that to happen. And so we really are happy that we're working with people who are up and running in days after using after buying our product. And I would definitely love to continue the conversation.
Awesome. Well, I encourage everybody to go check out Amrita's information in the Destination Marketers LinkedIn page. We'll also post that information in the Destination Marketers Facebook page. We've got a little bit of catching up to do on the Facebook page. It hasn't been around as long as the LinkedIn page, so we'll work on developing that a little bit. But go look for that information, and we encourage everybody to join and start benefiting from the content that comes from this podcast and other educational pieces that people have and will continue to post there. So thanks, everybody. This has been another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast, and we'll talk to you soon.